Okay, so the section that I did for fossil fuels was the issue of air pollution and the combustion of these fossil fuels that we use for energy. And the three in which we covered are oil, coal, and natural gas. So the largest issue that we face in the combustion of these fossil fuels to create the ever everlasting need for energy, are dealing with the effects that of the toxic emissions that are produced from the burning of these fossil fuels. And so it's our Earth, our atmosphere, and our health that are compromised for in order to fuel our cars, run our homes, and create this huge demand for energy. And so the first graph that I have here is titled Global Fossil Carbon Emissions, and it is divided into 5 different lines on this line graph. And one is the total, and then the other 4 are petroleum, which is oil, coal, natural gas, and cement production, which is kind of irrelevant here. But so it shows that petroleum starts out very low actually, but then ends up at the end towards end the year 2000 as the highest one, and followed by coal, which is followed by kind of a steady lower growth of natural gas. And so air pollutants from the combustion of fossil fuels are divided into 6 major emissions, which are carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, which is also referred to as ash or soot, mercury, and methane. So the first one, carbon dioxide, is emitted from the combustion of all 3 of our the fossil fuels we're discussing, which are coal, oil, and natural gas. So carbon dioxide is probably the most prevalent air pollutant that is kind of most well known. Not necessarily the most abundant, but it's the one that causes, like, I guess you could say it causes the most issues and is of greatest concern. So coal plants are the nation's top source of carbon dioxide emissions. So which basically just kind of gives you an idea that coal plants is obviously where coal is burned in order to create this energy. And so the production of these institutions creates big problems, as you'll see later as we discuss more of the emissions. So carbon dioxide is the primary cause of the greenhouse gas in global warming, or climate change. And that's something that's definitely well known, as it's an issue that we take into account in all over the world, that the rising percentage of carbon dioxide in our air is leading to huge problems that have already been present, and something is not done about it. Definitely a downhill slope for the United States, and not the United States, the world in general, the well-being of our Earth. So as well as that, carbon dioxide is the leading cause of smog, acid rain, and toxic air pollution. And that smog is kind of that haziness that you see in the air. It's often present in very high populated areas, like we discussed earlier in class recently about Shanghai and in China, how they have a huge carbon dioxide and smog problem. And there were even flights that were canceled. I remember we mentioned that, and that sort of thing. Acid rain, which is also a huge problem, as acid rain has effects on every part of the environment and the ecology of our Earth. As acid rain, it affects the water cycle, it affects us as humans in our drinking water, and leaching in the water to affect our crops. Once again, our drinking water that runs through the Earth, the organisms that it affects, habitats, etc. And toxic air pollution, which obviously affects our air, our ozone, our atmosphere. It affects our the health of all organisms, humans, animals, plants even, as it affects the way that they go about creating energy for themselves, going through photosynthesis. And yep. Okay, so the next one is sulfur dioxide, which is produced by, once again, all 3, coal, oil, and natural gas. And oops. Okay, and once again, to mention coal plants again, they are the U.S.'s leading source of sulfur dioxide pollution, which takes a major toll on public health once again. And so to kind of expand on that, SO2, which is sulfur dioxide, it contributes to the formation of these tiny acidic particulates that, and when humans respirate, when they breathe, they can penetrate the lining, the very delicate lining of human lungs, and absorb into the bloodstream, which affects the circulatory system, which can affect ultimately the nervous system and your body as a whole. And so, okay, and once again, sulfur dioxide causes acid rain, which can damage crops, forests, and soils, and acidifies lakes and streams. And so this acid rain, obviously, it rains, it precipitates, and it is soaked into the ground, which affects our food source as humans. And that's a huge problem, because if we are going to have tainted food that we need to nourish our bodies because of this air pollution, it's going to affect our health, and there's really nothing we can do. We can't stop the earth from raining, so we have to kind of get it at the source, which is this air pollution that we need to work on reversing. And yeah, the acidification of lakes and streams, which affects, once again, drinking water, as the water system is kind of all interconnected. Yeah, it's all interconnected. So the water cycle, I'm sorry, not water system. So as well as affecting the organisms in said lakes and streams, and the production of plants there, eutrophication can take place, as we discussed in class in the past. And yep, okay, so yeah, acid rain causes buildings, statues, and monuments to deteriorate. And that kind of just puts into perspective the severity of acid rain and almost the power that it has, in a way that it is so destructive that it can eat away at marble and cement and brick, all of that. So yeah, acid rain is definitely a problem. We don't want acid rain. Okay, and the next pollutant is nitrogen oxide, which is produced from the burning of all three fossil fuels. And nitrogen oxide pollution causes ground level ozone, or smog, in the atmosphere. And yeah, once again, the smog is that haziness that we see. Smog is horrible for our health. It consists of this particulate matter, which I'll discuss in just a second, actually. It affects the quality of the air that we breathe. And if we're not getting enough oxygen into our bodies to oxygenate our blood, to get oxygen to our brain for our brain to function, like, it's just a domino effect of the way that air pollutants affect our health. NOx can burn lung tissue, initiate asthma, increase susceptibility to chronic respiratory diseases, including lung cancer. And all of these, obviously, detrimental effects to our health. Lung cancer, all cancers, there's no cures. Like, is it really worth it to burn these fossil fuels to create energy if it's going to cause the population of all organisms to get such diseases, to affect our health in such ways? And NOx is also a precursor of acid rain, as are many air pollutants, which can damage trees, lakes, and soil, causes buildings, statues, and monuments to deteriorate once again. Okay, and so next is particulate matter, which is once again ash or soot. And it is precipitated by the burning of coal and natural gas, not oil this time. So particulate matter can cause bronchitis, aggravated asthma, and premature death. And as I mentioned before, particulate matter, as well as SO2, it is these little, in particulate matter, it is these tiny little microscopic pieces of soot or ash, I guess you could say, and when inhaled, the lining, it creates little tears in the lining of human lungs and lungs of all organisms, and it can create infections, which can ultimately lead to death and lots of problems with the health. And particulate matter, it's what creates that haziness in the air that obstructs the visibility in often highly populated areas, or areas with huge amounts of pollution in concentrated regions. And so ashes, smoke, soot, and dust that is precipitated from this particulate matter can dirty and discolor structures and property, including clothes and furniture. And once again, that also kind of just puts into perspective the concentration and the, once again, power that particulate matter has to affect its surroundings. Like, these are things that are floating in the air, and they have the ability to discolor things and affect the way that they look. Okay, and so, okay, the next is mercury, which is a very toxic heavy metal that it's considered very dangerous. It's a poison, obviously, and it is precipitated from all three fossil fuels, once again, coal, oil, and natural gas. It is responsible for over half of the U.S. caused emissions of mercury. Coal plants are, I'm sorry. Which once again brings up the kind of destruction that coal plants have created on Earth. And so this toxic metal can cause brain damage and heart problems. And liver, kidney, and once again brain damage, neurological and developmental damage in humans. It makes mercury just sound the way that it... I have to plug in my computer, I'm sorry. I don't want it to die. Okay. And let's see. All right, so just a little fact, just to put into, once again, put in perspective the toxicity of mercury. 1/70th of a teaspoon of mercury deposited into a 25-acre lake can make the fish unsafe to eat. So, if a concentration that low of mercury, it can affect the weight of the well-being of fish, in the sense that and then that refers to bioaccumulation and the idea that we addressed in class a few units back. And just a reminder, bioaccumulation, it grows as the food chain progresses, and us being humans, we eat fish. That just kind of shows that being at kind of the top of the food chain, you could say, bioaccumulation can be a huge problem for us. And lastly is methane, which is actually only produced from oil. So oil contributes to the greenhouse effect and ozone loss. And the greenhouse effect, just to summarize very briefly, is when the sun's rays are reflected from the sun onto the earth, and they penetrate our outer atmosphere and enter the lower atmosphere in which we live, and it is reflected off the ground, off reflective surfaces on Earth, and the rays kind of bounce off the ground to be redirected back out of the atmosphere, and then go back into space, I guess. But with the greenhouse effect, the air pollutants cause this kind of cloud, like this thick cloud around our atmosphere that prevents these rays from being redirected back out of our atmosphere. And so it creates this heating of our Earth which leads to global warming and climate change, and causes all these the melting of polar ice caps, etc., which we will discuss in a few minutes actually. And then ozone loss, which is not good, because our ozone, it protects us. It protects the harmful UV rays from entering the Earth and creating huge problems with that. And, alright, oil combustion in cars releases methane. Obviously, there are millions of cars all over the world, and when we burn gasoline, which is essentially, I guess you could say a form of oil, kind of a treated form of oil in which we power our cars with. If these millions of cars all over the world do that every single day, and so that begins to build up and creates big problems with that. And transportation is a huge attribution to air pollution. And so then I have an animation, which I won't play, obviously, but it kind of summarizes the effects and what causes air pollution. So you can watch that if you'd like. And let's see here. Okay, I think I'm going to stop this video now, actually, because it got too long last time and it wouldn't let me upload it, so I will make another one. Hold on.